Hello, Mr. Harney here. I'm going to go over some brief lectures. One on how science works and why evolution is important. And in the next following lecture, you'll find it in our educational series on higher educational principles, goals and objectives, citizenship and character. Many people do not study the facts because they live in an echo chamber where ignorance resonates, stupidity reverberates, and bigotry radiates. There is a clear reason why those who think that they know never learn. We have three axiomatic concepts or assumptions which I would like to discuss. Axiomatic concept 1. There are natural causes for things that happen or occur in the world around us, a world of constant change. Axiomatic concept 2. Evidence from the natural world, or the world as it is, can be used in order to learn about said causes. Axiomatic concept 3. There is also a consistency in the causes that operate in the natural world. Or, whenever I say natural world, what I mean is the world as it is, or the world as it appears to us. And if one wishes to not have one's thoughts and beliefs ridiculed, perhaps one would do well to correct their error by learning and thereby end their ridiculous thoughts and beliefs. First, allow me to explain the three axiomatics in more detail. The process of science builds reliable knowledge about the natural world or the world as it is. To understand evidence of this reliability, one can look around at the products that have been created by scientific knowledge, i.e., airplanes to antibiotics, batteries to bridges. These created technologies only work because science does. The process of accumulating scientific knowledge relies on the acknowledgement of the basic axiomatic concepts, of which there are three. Explaining axiomatic concept 1. Again, axiomatic concept 1 is that there are natural causes for things that happen or occur in the world around us, a world of constant change. Example 1. If an object falls to the ground, science assumes that there must be a natural explanation for why the object moved downwards once it is released from a stationary position. At the present time, scientists describe gravity in great detail, but exactly what gravity is remains elusive. Science assumes that there is a reasonable explanation for gravity that relies on natural causes, as the case for every single phenomenon in nature. If one posits a supernatural explanation, it is least probable and therefore in need of evidence. Explaining axiomatic concept number 2. Evidence from the natural world, the world as it is, can be used in order to learn about said causes. Science assumes that we can learn about gravity and why an object falls by studying and analyzing and also evaluating evidence from within the natural world or the world as it is. Indeed, scientists can and do perform experiments with other falling objects of a similar or different nature, observe how gravity affects the orbits of the planets of our solar system, etc. Evidence from a wide range of experiments and observations helps scientists to understand more about the facts concerning our universe, what the world is made of, how the world does what it does, and why there are natural causes of gravity. And so we can put the questions into two categories of what exists and what matters. A side note. Question. What allows the human animal to discover truth? Answer. Communities and institutions of the state that expose each other's fallacies and errors in order that society can be more rational than any of its individual members or the enfranchised. Conversely, what allows nonsense and thoughts that and beliefs that are wrong to proliferate is a persistent person and or a group that does not allow the critical evaluation of ideas, behaviors, and actions. Explaining axiomatic concept number 3. There is also a consistency in the causes that operate in the natural world or the world as it is. The same causes or different natural causes occur in related situations, and these causes are very predictable. Example 1. Science assumes that the gravitational forces at work on a falling object are related to those at work on other objects as well that are also falling. It is then further assumed that the workings of gravity do not change from moment to moment and object to object in unpredictable ways. Hence, what one learns about gravity today by studying falling objects can also be used in order to understand, for example, modern satellite orbits, the formation of the Earth and Moon in the distant past, and the movements of the planets and their stars in the future, because the same natural cause is at work regardless of when and where things happen as they do. Teaching encapsulates a modern secular approach to education and a continuation of the search for meaning. The intention is to instill a love of learning and culture for its own sake. Students work out for themselves only the knowledge they earn by their own efforts and through their own experience. That last bit was a quote from Ludwig Wittgenstein. Now, after explaining how science works, I want to begin an explanation as to why evolution is important before going back and giving a summation of how science works. There are 4 unifying principles that form the basis of biology. Whether biologists are particularly interested in prehistoric life, the existence of bacteria, or how human primates could live on the moon, they base all their observations and overall understanding of biology on these 4 principles: cell theory, gene theory, homeostasis, and evolution. The discovery and understanding of the processes of evolution represent one of the most potent achievements in the entire history of science. Evolution successfully explains the biodiversity of life on planet Earth and has been confirmed repeatedly through observation and experiment in broad spectrum of scientific auxiliaries. In fact, evolutionary science provides the foundation for modern biology. The study of evolution, therefore, has led to new types of medicinal, agricultural, and environmental research, and has also led to the development of technologies that can help prevent and combat diseases. Again, we'll talk about a brief summation of how science works. The study of evolution provides an excellent example of how scientists work. They observe nature, both microscopic, scopic, and macroscopic, and ask testable questions about the natural world or the world as it is, test those questions through experiment and new observations, and construct explanations of evolution based entirely on evidence. As natural scientists obtain new results and findings, they continue to refine their ideas. Explanations are altered, falsified, and sometimes totally rejected when compelling contradictory evidence is found. When scientific explanations are so well established, insofar as it is to the point that no new evidence is most likely to alter them, the explanation then becomes a scientific theory. General theories, of course, are speculative in nature, but scientific theories are not. However, in scientific fields, the word theory refers to a comprehensive explanation concerning a pertinent feature of nature that is supported through validity and soundness by many facts and accumulated over time. There is nothing more true than a scientific theory. Theories allow scientists in general to construct predictions about as yet unobserved phenomena. And so now we will use a theory, a scientific theory, in order to explain how science works. The example is the theory of gravity. After hundreds of years of observation and experiment, the basic facts concerning gravity are known and understood. The theory is simply the explanation concerning the understanding of those facts. Scientists then use the theory in order to construct predictions concerning how gravity will function in different circumstances. And given that these predictions have been verified by many experiments, the theory is still further confirmed to be true. And so the theory of evolution has been repeatedly tested and confirmed. It stands on an equally solid foundation of observation, experiment, and confirming evidence. And of course, now we will return to the postscript before going over some evolutionary principles. Humans all know from their experiences that biological traits pass from parents to their offspring. Sometimes traits change between generations. If a new trait results in an offspring functioning more suitable in its natural surroundings, biome, and environment, and producing more offspring that also inherit the trait, that trait will become more widespread over time. However, if the new trait makes the offspring less able to survive and reproduce, the trait will tend to fade from existence. Natural selection is the mechanism and the process by which some traits succeed and others fail in the environment in which the organism lives. Consider every type of life that can be observed in our present time. For each one of these, there were many other types that were not successful and, of course, became extinct. 99% of all animals that have existed, indeed have become extinct. And we have seen many animals and many different life forms become extinct in our own lifetime. Natural scientists no longer can reasonably question the basic tenets and facts of evolution as a process. The concept has withstood extensive testing by tens of thousands of specialists worldwide in areas such as biology, paleobiology, medicine, anthropology, paleoanthropology, geology, chemistry, and other related fields. And so discoveries in different fields of science have reinforced one another, and evidence for evolution has continued to accumulate for 150 years of human history. Concerning evolutionary principles, there are 4 principles at work in evolution: variation, inheritance, selection, and time. These are considered the components of the evolutionary mechanism of natural selection. However, there are many resources that add adaptation to their discussion of the evolutionary principles of natural selection, and so they use a different framework. The present framework is called VIST, which is variation, inheritance, selection, and time. The one that adds adaptation is called VISTA, variation, inheritance, selection, time, and adaptation. In variation, in all species, individuals differ in their genetic makeup, producing many variations in their physical features. Individuals in a population vary from each other. Concerning inheritance, individuals pass some of their genetic material to their offspring. Parents pass on their traits to their offspring. Selection constitutes that some individuals have inherited character or genes that allows them to better survive or produce more offspring. These offspring, in turn, are more likely to survive and create offspring of their own, and as a result, their genes become more common in the entire population. Some variants reproduce more than others. And T for time. Over time, selection results in changes in species. These changes may take days or decades or millions of years to occur. Successful variations accumulate over time. And then, of course, there's adaptation, but I won't go into that right now. We have 3 different types of evidence for the theory of evolution. We have the fossil record, DNA research, and as well as common ancestry. Concerning the fossil record, the concept of evolution is supported by fossil findings in rock layers from different ages of Earth's history. In general, fossils that more closely resemble today's life forms are found in younger rock layers, while many fossils that only distantly resemble life today occur in older layers. And based on such findings, naturalists proposed that species change or evolve over time. Natural selection has been identified as a driving force behind these changes, and since then, scientists have found an overwhelming number of fossils in rock layers of different ages that repeatedly confirm the changes in the life forms that are predicted by the theory of evolution. Concerning DNA research, molecular biology and genetics have revealed how evolution works at a level of molecules. Unknown when evolution and natural selection were once first proposed in the year 1859, genetics has shown that traits are passed from parent to offspring through DNA, a molecule in all living things that directs how cells grow and reproduce. DNA studies have supported findings from other branches of science. For example, species that appear to be more distantly related from their positions in the fossil record are found to have correspondingly greater differences in their DNA than species that appear more closely related in the fossil record. We have a comparison of the human and chimp DNA sequence for the gene that encodes the hormone leptin, which is involved in the metabolism of fats. And it reveals only 5 differences in 250 nucleotides. Where the human and chimpanzee sequences differ, however, the corresponding nucleotide in the gorilla can be used in order to derive the nucleotide that likely existed in the common ancestor of humans, chimps, and gorillas. In 2 cases, the gorilla and human nucleotides match, while in the other 3 cases, the gorilla and chimpanzee sequences are the same. The common ancestor of the gorilla, the chimpanzee, and human is most likely to have had the nucleotide that is the same in 2 of the 3 modern-day organisms, because this would require just 1 DNA change rather than 2. And third evidence, we have common ancestry. There are common structures and behaviors among many species, and that, of course, that does extend down to primates such as us, as well as the gibbons and the orangutans and the chimpanzees, etc. And New World, Old World monkeys. For example, a person writes, a cow walks, a whale swims, a bat flies, with structures built of bones that are different in detail, but also remarkably similar to each other. When fossils are compared to one another in structure, form, and function, and in age, it becomes clear that an ancestral species gave rise to an array of successor species with the same basic arrangement of limb bones. And as new findings have repeatedly demonstrated, for any 2 species living today, their evolutionary lines can be traced back in time until the 2 lines intersect in a common ancestor. The fossil record, DNA research, and evidence that species have common ancestors, as well as underfindings, all add up to overwhelming evidence that evolution by natural selection is how life on Earth arose and became diverse. And so we can see that nature imposes a direction to evolutionary development. Through dolphins, for example, they are more closely related to humans than they are to sharks. They have evolved bodies adapted to an aquatic environment. And so we also see that salmon, for example, are more closely related to humans as salmon are to sharks as well. A brief note on creationism and how it does not belong in the science classroom. Some people argue that the diversity of life did not evolve through natural processes. They advocate that creation be added to the school science curriculum alongside biological evolution. But creationism is not science. Creationist arguments are based on beliefs about an entity, a defined force, outside the natural world. But science can only investigate naturally occurring phenomena. In fact, the many questions about evolution raised by creationists, or those who are religious, are readily answered by available and accumulating scientific evidence. For example, I can list about 3. Creationists argue that the theory of evolution is faulty because of gaps in the fossil record. But creationists identify as gaps those situations where intermediate fossil forms between 2 related species are as yet undiscovered. But an increasing number of intermediate forms have been and continue to be found. Even without actual fossils in hand, scientists can use modern techniques in molecular biology and genetics, along with the principles of evolution, to infer what forms of life existed and predict where and what kinds of fossils will likely be found. And indeed, their findings have been overwhelming. Some creationists claim that certain features of living beings are too complex to have evolved through natural processes. They claim that structures, for example, such as a bacterium's flagellum, or the hair-like part that gives the bacterium motion, the human eye, or it could be even the immune system, are what they term irreducibly complex and therefore must have been created intact by an intelligent designer or God. But biologists have discovered that components of the flagellum have their own individual functions as well, and also have found intermediate forms of flagella. And so both of those findings support the idea of the flagellum evolving from existing structures over time. Also, the creationist argument that such features must have been designed is based on their preconceived idea of a divine being, or a god or creator, or what have you, while the scientific position is based on observable facts and falsifiable explanations, things that occur in natural reality, not supernatural reality. Some creationists argue, based on an ancient book or ancient religious text, that the earth cannot be old enough for the diversity of life to have emerged through evolution. Yet measurements from geology, astronomy, and other related fields have repeatedly confirmed the ancient age of the earth, which is approximately 4.5 billion years old, and it goes directly and contradictory to some of these estimations that have been proposed in the history of humanity. And because science has no way to accept or refute creationist assertions, creationist beliefs should not be presented in science classrooms alongside teaching about evolution. Teaching non-scientific concepts in science class will only confuse students about the processes, nature, and limits of science. And on another note, conversely, teaching non-historical concepts or ideas in history class will only confuse students concerning the methods and limitations of historical writing.